All right. Good morning, everybody. How we doing? All right. Let's try that again. Good morning. How's everybody doing? That's pretty terrible. Come on. We fed you coffee and breakfast this morning. All right. I'll try it again. How's everybody doing this morning? All right. Much better. Hey, so my name is Andy Helms. I'm the Vice President for Economic Development at the United Way of the Chattahoochee Valley. I'm also part of the Executive Leadership Committee of the Chips for Chips Economic Development Coalition. And on behalf of our sponsors, the United Way of the Chattahoochee Valley, the United States Economic Development Administration, as well as the C4C or Chips for Chips Coalition, we truly have an action-packed agenda for you today. It's going to move really fast. Contains a lot of information. You're going to hear from senior leadership at some of our largest employers within the region, and then as well as state-level educators from multiple levels in both Alabama and Georgia. You're going to learn today about the changing demographics of our states and how it impacts our workforce, and also how it impacts our employers, of course. We're going to introduce you to leadership from other communities within Alabama and Georgia. We're going to learn about their exciting initiatives that they have going on to achieve purposeful alignment of education and industry. But the bottom line is there's a lot of information for your consumption today, and we want to help you organize for success. So I'm going to start, of course, with a few administrative comments. So in addition to silencing your cell phones, I'm going to incentivize you to actually not use them today. And I know we all will have fires to put out at the end of the day. But the biographies of your speakers, the panelists, their headshots, their slides, will all be made available to you this afternoon when we conclude. And you can access them. You may have noticed on your agenda there's a QR code, but you can just screenshot or take a photo of that QR code, and you can pull all that information up. It'll be available for you, like I said, when we conclude. While we do have an ambitious timeline, I'm hoping when every one of our presenters and our panelists is done today, I'm hoping we'll have some time for Q&A. We'll see if we get there. But if you do have a question at the end, please just raise your hand, and we have staff members that'll bring a microphone to you. Some of you, probably the very first thing you looked at today when you saw the agenda was you checked to see the break schedule. And I will tell you, in addition to the buffet lunch today, we only have one 10-minute break scheduled. I was told this would be a very tough crowd, so I'm banking on that. But there are 5-minute transition periods between each of our presentations, and so I think our room facilitates this. If you need to get up and use the facilities, or you want to enjoy some of the snacks and beverages that we'll have set up all day, you can just slide right out and go do what you need to do. But we're going to really focus on keeping things moving today. And finally, you've probably already figured out we've intentionally seated you this morning. We have a really diverse crowd here today, representing a lot of different sectors and interest. So please take the time while we're going through the agenda to introduce yourselves, exchange contact information, and learn about what each one of you brings to workforce development within our region. Sound good? Excellent. Okay. So on this note, I'm going to start off by telling you that each of us, regardless of what we do, is an economic developer. The Georgia Chamber Foundation, for each of the past 3 years, has published an economic competitiveness Red Book. Some of you may be familiar. But the Red Book is a holistic assessment of the economic vitality of the state by county. And I would describe it, it's very much like a farmer's almanac of community data. It contains everything from workforce participation rate, infrastructure investment, student proficiency by grade level, demographics, our non-communicable disease rates. You get the picture, right? But regardless of where a community stands, according to the data, what I take away from it every time I look at it is that we're all economic developers. Everyone in our community has a role in the vitality of this region. And it's not just the responsibility of our elected leaders, of our developers, of large industry, to help our communities thrive. I would argue it's the quantitative data is ultimately a reflection of how well we do our jobs, how well we parent, how well we mentor, how informed and proactive we are with community matters, and a whole lot of other qualitative factors. So your presence here today, to me, is an affirmation, really, of the excitement you have for our community and your commitment to making us stronger and better. I really do want you to leave here this afternoon with a clear understanding of the possibilities that exist for our community, what's possible when we settle on a vision for where we want our community to be, and what is possible when we establish achievable goals and then hold ourselves accountable to them. And more than anything, the possibility of achieving success through purposeful alignment of effort. So with that, it's now my honor to introduce to you our first speaker, Mr. Stuart Countess. Stuart is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Kia Georgia's manufacturing facility in West Point. He's responsible for all operational facets of a 5-model assembly plant, employing more than 3,200 team members and producing 350,000 vehicles annually. Stuart has held numerous positions within Kia Georgia since joining the company in 2008. He's highly active in the community, in civic and educational organizations, promoting individual development and providing leadership through service on multiple boards and committees in various capacities. So please join me in welcoming Stuart Countess.
Well, good morning. It's always an easy topic to talk about education, but certainly more how we're going to provide opportunities for this up-and-coming generation in various places throughout this entire state. It was mentioned even about the Georgia Chamber and the number of different jobs that exist. You know, the jobs that certainly I'm most interested in are about the manufacturing jobs, but when you take a look around the state, there's tremendous amount of opportunity. The question is how we're going to get into people interested and develop those career pathways. But what I thought I'd start off with is at least giving you a little bit of an introduction to who we are. Some of you have been there and visited. Those that haven't, please see April or Natalie and we'll get you a schedule for a tour. But it will also give you some insight into what an opportunity in manufacturing can look like. So a little bit behind the Kia Georgia story. The site was announced in March of 2006. This past November, we celebrated 15 years of manufacturing in the state of Georgia. It seems like the kind of a blink of an eye or snap of a finger how quickly this has gone by. But in that same 15 years, we've made more than 4.6 million cars in the West Georgia region. That in itself is quite an accomplishment for a state that actually at that time had not produced a vehicle in a number of years. We do sit on 2,200 acres. Of that, we have developed 650. There is about 35 acres under rooftop. Those two numbers are in the process of being updated as we are finishing up a $217 million expansion that allows for what Andy referred to as the 5th model production within the same single line facility. To date, we have put more than $3.2 billion into the local development. That is not inclusive of all the suppliers and surrounding opportunities that have come with us. We do have, as he stated, 3,200 team members on site. In actuality, if you consider the suppliers that are on our property, plus other support staff that come in, we're about 6,500 people every day, which makes us the second largest city in Troup County. I jokingly tell my colleagues that I'm the mayor of Kiaville. But that's a tremendous amount of folks that come through that facility in a 24-hour period. We do run 3 shifts. We're running 5 days a week. We can run on Saturdays if the market demand says that we need to. So as long as everybody's consuming a Kia car, you know, we'll work 7 days a week for you if we had to. And we do produce on an annual capacity of 350,000 vehicles a year. What that equates to is a new car every 51 seconds. So a little bit of history about Kia in itself. We put this up there just to kind of show you where we were many years ago, but more importantly, where we are today. Kia actually started off as a bicycle company back in 1944. It then progressed into making motorcycles in 57, and then it built its first sellable vehicles for the Korean market in 73. Today, as of last week, we now make 2 battery electric vehicles inside our facility, along with 3 internal combustion cars. So it's quite an evolution. And certainly what we've seen from many of the other things that this community has been also exploring, other high-tech technology, advanced manufacturing. I can say that because truly I knew that EVs were going to come. But I didn't think in that short time span we would see the drastic change. But when you put your organization together and you're focused on how to move things forward and certainly provide opportunities for individuals, this is a direct result of good leadership at the state level, the local level, to help its citizens in those local areas be successful. So if I start in the top left, the Telluride is the only facility making that is in West Point, Georgia. That's not the case for other cars. We have a sister facility in Korea or some other place in the world that makes these other cars, but West Point, Georgia is the sole manufacturer of this car. That vehicle is actually, if you remember back in 2019 when the Super Bowl was in Atlanta, that was the kickoff. And since that time, we have not been able to keep pace with a car which is now 6 years old. So it's been a wonderful opportunity, and it's certainly in the automotive world a dream vehicle when you can't meet capacity. The car to the bottom left was the first electric vehicle that we built, which was an EV9. It is a full 3-row SUV, quite a massive size car. It's actually the largest car that we do make. The top right is the Sorento. That is the car that birthed this facility. We're now on the 3rd generation, having launched that in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. And then the bottom right is the Kia Sportage, which is actually the largest selling vehicle in the Kia brand within North America. And then last week, the car in the center is our second electric vehicle, which is classified technically as a CUV, is the EV6. So what I'm here to talk to you about, and certainly have a conversation, because at the end, I want to allow you to ask questions. Workforce is a passion that I take. Several of you that have worked with me on this topic over the number of years. We need people to be our future, to accept these new jobs. It's not only new technology, but do the jobs of what we're doing today. And the challenge is, how are we going to recruit them? We share this slide, and I see Stephanie, my great friend on this. She gets all the credit. Over numerous conversations, we talked about, what is it that people think about manufacturing? We as parents of children, want the best for all of our children. You need to go to a 4-year institution. You need to go get XYZ. You need to have this type job. And manufacturing in itself tends to take a hit because it's portrayed as a dull, dirty, dangerous, and a dead-end job. Now, if you ever to visit our facility or have visited, I think you have a very different perspective. Manufacturing is a different way, certainly, to do things. We, as a community in the larger West Georgia region, have always been a community that has built things or made things. Much in our area has always been about textile mills, but that went away, and we have reinvented what we did. It even goes to the point, if you take a look about where West Point was many years ago, and I lived here back in the late 80s when Hughes Aircraft had a facility operating. It was a textile-based community. It was the Millikens, the West Point Pepperells, etc. But that went away. And arguably, West Point was a dying community. Lots of boarded up fronts. But today, with a new advanced manufacturing facility and job opportunities, it is a thriving community. We are proud that we have been able to help revive, but also continue to expand the opportunities that exist in that area. So where it becomes the question about it is a dull, dead-end, dangerous type job, this is a video clip to show you what actually goes on in one particular area of our facility. So as an individual that's looking to seek a career as they come out of high school, or maybe wanting to just change what their career is currently, how can you program robots? How can you work with robots? Inside our facility, when you consider the welding shop alone, there's almost 400 robots. There's actually only about 75 people that work in there. We took individuals who used to work in those mills and taught them how to program or do touch-up programs on robots, a skill set that they had no previous background in. That was skilling people up to what the current technology is. Many of those people today have progressed through different levels within the company to do other things, take on roles of engineers. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. But I think there's an argument to be made. This is not dull, dirty, and dangerous. It is a way of the future, and it's about those companies that we're trying to recruit into our communities to have a thriving community long term with but more importantly, keep people within our community. We do focus a lot on education. This particular topic, this is my soapbox. It hit me back in 2022. I was trying to increase the employment in order to accommodate more cars coming out of the facility. I needed 500 individuals, new employees, new positions. And I was having a difficult time finding them. Certainly COVID didn't help any of us during that time period. But there was a staggering statistic that hit me square in the eyes in May. I'm looking for 500 people. And I find out that one of the local high schools, 40% of the kids, when they graduate, had no plans. They were not going to a 2-year institution, 4-year institution, and they were not going to work, period. Now, I personally believe that if you want to solve generational poverty, make advancements, that's the question of how we got to address that. But what we found out is that there was too much of a misunderstanding about what we do in our facility that was being perpetuated throughout the local community. It caused us to take pause and say, how are we going to change that narrative? And people like Stephanie have worked with us and many others in this room, certainly, to how do we promote opportunities to individuals within the high schools, the technical colleges, and in general the community, because there are opportunities. One of the areas that we focus in, and we actually do this here in Columbus coming up next month, we have dedicated more than $3.6 million into the SAE Foundation's A World in Motion. This is a program where we provide kits to local elementary schools all the way up through 8th grade in hands-on experiments, learning problem solving, working in team environments, analyzing data and making adjustments. Each year in Columbus, we have 5th graders from all the various schools that will come together. And you want to talk about a loud environment, and you got about, 300 5th graders. These are kids that are having fun. But I think the more impressive thing is how they're working together. And certainly, we could all argue that that's something we face throughout society, is how do you work and listen to different opinions and ideas. But these are kids who put all of that aside because they're trying to achieve a goal together, which is win a competition and be recognized. They're all winners. They're all winners because of what they're doing and how they're doing it together in our book. We've impacted more than 100,000 kids so far. 2 years ago, we realized that at the numbers at that time, those kids that were in that particular cohort were not born when we started this program. But it also made us recognize that some of the kids from the very beginning were now employees of us, and we went back and checked. They had had that experience, and hopefully they were impacted by that experience to come and seek an opportunity within our own facility. The second program that has been really beneficial, and this is about 3 years old, is called Green Power USA. This was a program that was started actually up in Huntsville, but the state of Georgia has really done a lot of work in this area. Tremendous work certainly in the West Georgia region, but we see it throughout the entire state. This program is again run through the elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and then we're also seeing some of the universities, colleges that are picking this up. It too is a very highly competitive class. Typical size is 9 to 13, where kids have to bid to get into this. They're going to build an electric go-kart. Pretty good for what I do. They buy this kit. Somebody has to be the finance person. Somebody's got to be the marketing person. Someone has to be the pit boss. And probably the most coveted position, but also one of the most brutal positions, is who's going to be the driver. So they start picking and finding who is the person, the smallest stature, to put in that car so that they can win the race. When you watch these events, and they too have events around the state, there will be one in March on our site. You're certainly more than welcome to come and take a look. This is like going to a Bulldog tailgate, wherever my buddy Greg Wilson is. I'm an Alabama graduate, so I do that for him. You see families, parents, children, grandparents, neighbors. What they're there is their purpose is to encourage that child, that team, to do whatever the task is. And there's a number of different skills. But it's the right environment for them to learn. Certainly there are disappointments, but they come away learning something that they go to their next competition and then they improve on it. The way we approach this from our viewpoint is through educational pathways. This shows how we have approached it in a number of different areas. The College and Career Academy in Troup County, Think Academy, was sponsored by ourselves and some other companies. To date, we've again put more than $3.6 million into this. This was a recognition that we had a gap back in the 2014 time period of we didn't have the maintenance skill set in order to handle the high-tech equipment that we were bringing in. We could have easily taken the approach and just said, somebody needs to deliver. You, the education workforce, needs to deliver that to us. But that's not the right approach. Business and industry have got to work together. My industry is changing so fast, no disrespect, you can't keep up with me. I have an obligation to tell you what is coming in the next 1 or 2 years so that we can make adjustments together to make everyone successful. We have never done that before as an industry, not our industry, just in whole. We have held closely what are our secrets and then just waited to see what we got out of it. A number of years ago, there was a meeting actually between myself and Lockheed Martin and Caterpillar. And the recognition amongst the three of us were, we got to change how we're doing this. There was an industry council that was created out of the Georgia Chamber in order to address this. And we come together still to this day and meet about what are the new trends. There's a couple of things that I've heard out of that group over the years, but the one that I think is the most significant change is we will meet you where you are, not the other direction. And we sincerely mean that. We have to if we want to get the right people into the right place and give them opportunity. The College and Career Academy was a step forward in that. We have since advanced that. We've put equipment, money, and time in bringing that in. The next step in that is about work-based learning. Work-based learning is, as you know, is giving that individual an opportunity to come into your environment and learn and see what that particular job is, how it's going to be performed. There's some narrative that gets talked about that, you know, what if I don't like it? I'm one that believes that it's not a negative when someone says, well, I don't want to be a maintenance person. I don't want to be an engineer. I want to do something different. I think that's a win because at least you've eliminated it from the question that that individual has. How do we get more young people into work-based learning? 4 hours in a facility, 4 hours at the home-based school. You will find that a lot of these individuals will come and work for you. My one shared story, and I know many of you have heard this story, but I think it's it's two stories. I think that they're important. I had a young man that came out of the Think Career Academy, and I asked him, what are you going to do? What's your goals? This was his first semester. They can work 3. I'm going to go to Auburn. I'm going to get my mechanical engineering degree. Okay, great. Sounds like a good plan. He worked in our maintenance area for 3 semesters. At the end of that time, what are you going to do? Or have we prepared you to go to that next step? His honest story was, I can't afford to go to college. I come from a single parent home, and I don't want to go into debt. But what I have found out in 3 semesters is, I like working here, I like the opportunity, and I want to come back and work for you. I want to get my 2-year degree from the technical college. So he did it. The individual's 26 years old and is north of six figures. 26 years old. We have offered numerous times to send this individual back to get his degree. Not interested. Okay, he still has an offer. He can go back to school. Not a problem. He found a happy place. How do we help more people find that happy place? Like many of you, I've got children. I pushed 4-year degree, 4-year degree. You know, my youngest child, that was just not her pathway. It's not what she wanted to do. We have to adjust our way of thinking and provide these different pathways because there are many. It is not the traditional pathway. Second individual, and I will come back to the other stuff in a little bit on that. Second individual also came in the same cohort as this other young man. He worked in our paint shop in maintenance, and he happened to ask a question to some 30-year veterans one day. They were changing a filter out. Why are you doing it this way? Of course, these old crotchety people, you know, that's how maintenance people are. Sorry if I offend you, but, you know, that's just the way we do it. Well, what if you did it this way? He took a 1-hour job and turned it into a 15-minute job by simply asking a question. He saw the world through a different set of lenses. And guess what I'm doing? I'm doing a 15-minute job now. Those are the ideas that we have got to pull out. I can build a car in my sleep, but I got to listen to others and how they think and view the world in a little bit different way. It won't change my culture, but it can change my results and my bottom line if I will open my eyes to listening to different ideas and giving people an opportunity. Experiential learning, very much the same. How do we, you as educators, you're all invited to come and see what we do. The door is wide open. We did that for a number of years in Troup County, actually before COVID, through a program. The point was we needed to show and change that perception about the 4Ds in our industry. And we did, and it's coming back. Job shadowing the same way. So maybe if that individual is unable to do the 3 semesters, there's a number of students that will come in and do some 3-day job shadowing. They too are learning what maybe they don't want to do. And I have seen individuals, kids, that come from very good backgrounds, very affluent families that just say, I'm tired of school. I want to know what I can do differently. Not condoning it, I'm just telling you that these are the results. And internships the same way. We have internships with all the local colleges. We have college kids that come in all the time. So it's just another avenue to bring people in and get that real world experience within our facility. So we think about STEM in a very different way. The traditional definition, as you know, is about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I challenge you to our definition of it. I'm not discounting the other. I'm an engineer, so I get all of those things on the left side of this chart. Soft skills is the S. How do you work in a team environment? How do you listen to diverse opinions? The T is about the technical skills, and most companies will teach you the technical skills. You can learn the basics, but you're going to still have some internal training that's going to help to develop those things. The E is engagement. Don't come in and be a bump on a pickle. Be engaged in what's going on. Talk to your colleagues, learn, listen. And certainly M is about motivation. Be motivated to be successful, motivated to learn, motivated to achieve success through various measures that each company has. But we've also gone a little bit further. If you want to talk about STEAM, that you can add the adaptability. I will tell you that one thing in the manufacturing world, adaptability is probably one of the more crucial ones. I think Jeff will probably agree with me on this. Because if you go back to the COVID period, I had 7 production schedules between the 6:30 hour and 7 a.m. You have got to adapt to the environment that you're in. That was an unusual situation, but being able to adapt is key. You go one step further, and it's STREAM, and that's about being resilient. Things will change. It's inevitable. So that's how we view STEM. We call it STEM 2.0. We certainly encourage any and all of those. We believe that a young individual, any individual, will be successful in how they achieve those particular steps. As we as a company will live up to teaching and coaching, bringing that individual up through the organization. So I'll share with you a couple of the results and why I say that. We all know through the governor's program, and I think this was commented, some of you were at the Georgia Chamber meeting on eggs and issues on Tuesday. I had a little bit of a pause when I was thinking about the interview with the Lieutenant Governor. One of the best things is now that these young individuals in the schools with Georgia Match. So my question is, you think back to our time when we went to our chosen university, next step in our life, and you got that letter that says you are now accepted into XYZ. It's a pretty proud feeling, right? Now all these individuals are getting these letters that say that you're qualified to go into these particular schools within your region and various other areas. I think that's quite a change, especially for maybe some individuals who didn't know about these opportunities. Maybe they didn't have that support system to help coach them there. Not of their own doing and not maybe the fault of any others. I think that's kind of a moment where we need to, again, really think about how you can take someone who doesn't know what they're going to do and put a smile on their face and say, yeah, there's an opportunity out there for me. But we have to promote that. It's also about internal promotion and success. I would tell you that within our own company, give you some stats on this just as an example. 40% of my engineering staff have no engineering degree. Don't be scared about that, because that's not the point. These are people who have worked hard, and in many cases, they understand the engineering principles better than the person who's got a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. Hard knocks. 40%. They started off as an hourly team member, worked their way up through the organization, found that opportunity when it came on our open jobs internal system, applied for it, and have been successful. Some of the hardest working individuals that I've ever seen. We've had 169 people go through the experiential learning that I mentioned previously. 22 of those have become salary hires. We have a program with the Technical College System of Georgia through West Georgia Tech. It's our maintenance certification program. This also was an outcome of the Think College and Career Academy, how we're going to develop a program that individuals could interview for, not only internally within our company, but also external. 78 people have graduated through that program to date, and we continue to update it and upskill them further. High school work-based learning program participants, 41. In our active team member list who have been promoted to various leadership roles, all of these individuals and numbers started off as an hourly production team member. 11 of our managers started off as an hourly team member. 50 assistant managers, or what we also call program managers. And there's 145 of our group leader or specialists. Group leaders are frontline supervision. Specialist is somebody who is working in finance, HR, TR, maybe be an engineer, but 145 have progressed up that scale. My point for telling you those statistics is it's not always if you come into a manufacturing environment, that's where you're going to be. You have a pathway internal of how to progress through a company. Obviously, you got to do the right things, show the interests, etc. But there's a pathway to success. My VP of production, I use him as an example. He's been in the automotive industry for 30 years. He's the vice president of production. He got there through working as a team member and progressing up through the system. Then work-based learning success stories, I shared those with you. I think there are a lot more of those out there. What I do think we need to do is promote together the stories. For me to talk to you, it's easy, but for me to communicate and get someone who is 18 years old, 17 years old, they sometimes kind of hear that old blah, 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 blah kind of deal. That's what my wife hears, but she knows that. Anyway, she knows I say that. The point is, how do we use these kids who have come from the similar circumstances to be the promoters of an opportunity? They need to tell their story. The technical college, I think, is one of the best examples when they have their gold student of the year. I see my friend Martin sitting here. That's an individual, could be a young adult, could be somebody who's maybe changed their life to a different career. But some of the success stories and the obstacles that they have overcome are incredible. They're life-changing events, and we need to use those individuals to our advantage to promote what that next person can do. On the job experience, based engineers, I mentioned that's where we've hired that 40% of our engineers. We'll continue to do that. I don't ever see that changing. There's certainly a lot of opportunities now coming in our particular industry about software engineers. So we're going to need more and more people to develop into those roles. And then promote that there is a new opportunity for every team member in our particular case. But I think you can say that in any of your companies. Those are just a few things. Leaving a few minutes, back the wrong way. So we do have a few minutes left over. I thought I'd open it up for questions, and I'll do my best to try to answer them. I believe there's some people walking around with microphones. I got all the questions answered. We are here. Yeah, we're here to be a partner, and I think you'll find that in any of your businesses. Businesses need to go in, industry needs to go in and ask, how can I get students, people, give them an opportunity. I will repeat myself that there is nothing wrong with finding out that this is not what I want to do. You've at least eliminated that from the list, and they won't struggle with that as they progress.
Hey, well, first of all, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. How many positions are you seeking to fill on an annual basis, and what are those positions, the buckets of what you're seeking to fill?
From production team member side, we typically always are rotating around 50 to 75. There's just let's say a churn that happens, and that's currently where we're sitting. So it all, it's easy to go through. There's a process we go through, a temp to perm system. That's not abnormal. That just gives us flexibility, but about 75 in there. On the salary side, that number's probably about 40 right now, and that's across all organizations, whether it be finance, HR, TR, EHS. So there's a number of opportunities there.
Hi, I have a question. I read an article about a year ago in Forbes magazine about how in the next 10 years, AI will degrade or either diminish over 300 million jobs. And my question is, with that being the projection, of course, we don't know specifically, but with that being the projection according to that article, how will that affect or impact students moving into this career within the next decade?
So the concern typically with AI is that we're going to automate and eliminate jobs, right? That's kind of the narrative that goes on. Are we trying to automate jobs? Yes. But what you have to realize is that we have to have people in order to maintain that process. My best example, and this is a change that we made 2 summers ago in our welding shop. There's a line in there that we actually ripped out completely, which I had not seen to that level since 2008. We automated that line. We did reduce a number of positions, but the reduction in those positions where I had other places I needed those people. So we retrained those individuals and moved them somewhere else. But there also has to be folks who are maintaining those robots in this particular case. So it's not a net zero. Actually, I think you're going to find there's more positions that get created, and in many cases at a higher level through new advanced technologies. So I expect that will continue.
I work in for Columbus Waterworks in a construction environment, manufacturing environment. I often hear insurance is an issue with trying to hire students in these type of environments. How have you had a challenge with that, and if so, how have you addressed that?
The answer to your question is yes, we did have that. Is it easy? No. So everybody told us likewise, well, you can't bring someone of a certain age inside a manufacturing facility. Yes, I have robots. Most manufacturing facilities have some type of automation or issue you got to deal with. My challenge was to the HR department, stop telling me how I can't do it and tell me how you're going to do it. And it's just that blunt. There is a way to do it. You have to consider your workers' comp and things like that, but never let anyone tell you you cannot do it. Everything's possible. I would tell you that from individuals that I know within the state, private, and in the public sector, they all recognize it. They're willing to work with you. You just got to find the way to do it. They may only be able to do, for example, these individuals that I mentioned in the maintenance area, no, they're not going inside a caged robot. But they can stand on the outside and they can see the work processes and the thought processes. Hallelujah. I'm all in favor of that because they're getting training. Don't take no as an answer. I'll be glad you can reach out to us and we'll tell you kind of some of the processes that we did, but it can be done. There was somebody back here I saw. Yeah.
Good morning. With Columbus, for high school students, you know, the distance with Columbus and West Point, like, what are some ways, is this something in the making, like, that Kia will, you know, create opportunities for those students here in high school, such as things like, you know, resume building skills, because or even those jobs to allow them to gain experience here that will create that pathway for them to be able to become employed at Kia out of high school, because even many adults, we still struggle with writing resumes or building those skills that's needed to, you know, come straight out of high school or college to be hired by, you know, big companies.
Make sure I understood your question. I thought the first part was maybe how individuals from Muskogee County and kind of a transportation issue. I don't know, honestly, I don't know the answer to that. We've struggled with that. In the Troup County area, certainly it's easier access. It's not that we're not looking at it, but I think that we're willing to engage about what those opportunities are. We, as a company, don't provide transportation for anyone. So we can have that conversation. As far as about resume writing, we have really kind of escalated recently, I think, more activity with the Muskogee County school system. So we bring people into schools, not only to actively recruit, but certainly these programs like that I mentioned, that could be something that we could look into for sure.
Matt Redmond, Hardaway High School. Sir, when you think about your new hires, your entry-level folks, what deficits rather do you see when it comes to either soft skills or technical skills or hard skills that you wish you had, that these folks coming to you had? Because that's a real practical one for those of us that are in the classroom.
You can't see this, but I can see all the faces that are kind of chuckling to see how I'm going to answer that. I've really been surprised, and I don't know how to fix it, but the one thing that I just can't get over is how people can't get along. And I know you struggle with that. I mean, that's just, it bothers, I think it bothers all of us. So from a soft skills standpoint, it's how can you work in a team? In our environment, people are close together. There's no way around that. That's just the way it is set up. What we are looking at, I will tell you, and you can take it back however you need into your particular areas. We are exploring the area of mental health and how we de-escalate issues that we see happening in the plant. That's not something normally we as an industry would do, but we have recognized that there is a need to do so. So I'd come back to you in 9 months to 12 months and tell you whether it's going to work or not. I think it will be. We've had some conversation with other companies that have done this. They say they have positive results, but we need to see it for ourselves. Everybody's got a different opinion. I'll go outside and have a beer with anybody afterwards. But when I come in those doors, I need to feed my family, provide insurance for my family, and get the job done. And I can disagree whether I like Alabama, I like Georgia, or I like Alabama later. And it's pettiness, and absolute pettiness. Just get off of social media. I will say this, and I know I'm over, so I'll stop after this. I am really interested in some of the school districts that are taking phones away. I am totally fascinated by this. I'm fully for it. We have a no cell phone policy, but you cannot believe how adults cannot follow a policy. and they find themselves in trouble. And that's where I think a majority, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, you see it more, is so-and-so said this on this. Really? You got to get off of that. So anyway, I'll come back to you about and tell you how the mental health is. Mary Johnson's in here. She's, where are you, table 9? She'll tell you, I see her, but she'll tell you how we're kind of approaching this. It's a new area for us. One more question, then I think I'm over, right, Andy? We're good? Okay.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Aegis from Carver High School. Do you have or currently will have in the future any portable learning? And what I mean by that is if we have classrooms that is conducive for welding or, in my case, logistics, where we would do inventory management, where we would love to highlight auto parts and what have you, even if it's not feasible for, because we can take a limited number of students to your facility, but I don't know if you have a program where you guys can come out and do it, and that way it opens up the doors for students to see who probably aren't even a part of the pathway, but just get to come and watch and could spark interest there. So if we have a classroom that's conducive to some of the things that you do you have a team or, I guess, portable educators that will come on site and show or train or explain to the students, because that could spark interest and reach more versus the 15 that we may can take on the field trip.
So make sure I understand your question. The question is really more about us coming into your classrooms and talking about potential careers or opportunities that exist from a teaching education point. Is that correct?
Yes.
The answer is yeah, sure. I have no problem. We have sent people into schools to try and, I guess, coach what potential you can be. We are more than open to do that. And I got a lot of people that love doing that. All this stuff with the AWIM that I showed you, we send people into these various county schools to help facilitate that program effectively. You're good? Andy's still giving me the thumbs up up here. One more, he says.
Thank you. I'm Marty Venn, interim provost at Columbus State, soon to go back to retirement. But in most of my career, I've been working with academic units to revise their curriculum, to build new curriculum for the new, careers. I'd really be interested in, you talked about STEM point 1 and STEM point 2, and the fact that 40% of your engineers do not have an engineering degree, which I think is fascinating. What do you recommend as to how we guide faculty to think about that and build their curriculum almost in a 2.0 fashion?
I'll give you a little bit of what I think is real world. We sat down with the technical college system and designed a advanced manufacturing degree certificate. It's partnering with said institution or larger agency. You're going to find people are willing to do that. We have done that. I think the other thing that's going to be key, and this is the, again, Governor Kemp's High Career Demand Initiative. Some of you may know, but I chair the State Workforce Development Board. So that program fits up underneath the Office of Workforce Development and how we're going to implement that throughout. I like a whole lot of what I see because it's going to refine what is to go on. It's not necessarily a full statewide program. It also has regional aspects. The things that go on in the west side of Georgia are very different than they are up in North Georgia. And we need to keep that in focus. And that's been an ongoing conversation. So these areas, whether it be, somebody mentioned logistics, some areas that's more important than it is in others. Manufacturing, high advanced manufacturing is important in other areas. I think you're going to see that continue to grow, and we're going to define those clear pathways that get people interested, but more importantly, keep them interested in the program. Okay? You're all welcome to come and see us at any time. We'd love to show you what we do, and I certainly invite each and every one of you to come in and spend a day or two or three or a week if you'd like to. You know, we'll take you through the facility. Our only request is tell what that opportunity is back to these individuals that can come and help to continue to make the state of Georgia the #1 place in which to do business. All right, thank you.